Hey, everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the Engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live, headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay, every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Art Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.
Hey, this is Tyler Jones, and you're listening to another episode of the Element Podcast. What's happening on my woods, people? Currently, we are in a vehicle. I'm sure you can hear a little background noise, but we're in KC's vehicle, actually, and KC is driving it. Actually, let me start this over. This is Mike Peaker, actually, right here beside me. And, he's driving his vehicle. You guys don't know him as well, but you might have heard him on the podcast before. What's happening, Mike?
Hey!
Oh, my gosh.
Man, just rolling down the road. I feel like we are the Element Mobile podcast these days.
That's it.
We record a lot on the road because we are super busy, which is good. It's fun to be busy. Whoa, I got a little bit louder in my ears. But rolling along, hoping to not have to hit the brakes too much because I'm having brake issues on my vehicle.
Yep.
And
otherwise known as brissues.
Brissues, yes.
Yeah.
But, so yeah.
It's a beautiful day outside,
I'm glad
man.
to be out in the middle of nowhere where we don't have near as many cars in front of us slowing down fast and me sweating bullets as we very slowly slow down. Can you slowly slow down, or is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I think that's right. Yeah, you can do that, I believe.
I didn't know if that was like a double negative or something.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, it's a beautiful day, though. We have sunshine and open roads up ahead of us. We are headed into the Midwest, basically. We're headed north on a trip of a lifetime.
Oh, really?
Probably because we're going to get a buck of a lifetime on one of these cameras we're going to check.
Oh, my goodness, dude. Don't get me too excited yet. We still got like 7 hours to drive. I don't think it's that long, but
yeah, probably not, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
So we're headed to the Midwest. We're going to do a little bit of a very quick scouting run through several states and pieces of public that we've looked at on maps, and we're going to check a couple of cameras that we've got in a different state, and hope that they're still there because they've been there a while. So we can talk more about that in a minute. But what's been happening with you, dude?
Well, I've been
Hadn't heard much from you. It's kind of like you must be in a bottom somewhere. You don't have any service during the day.
I am. I've been I've been building a barn dominium for a while, and now like I'm working inside, putting up sheetrock inside of it, and like it's pretty much a refrigerator inside. It stays like 42 degrees constantly, so you're cold all day.
Yeah.
And B, that metal is like a tinfoil hat. Pretty much, it just blocks all radio waves coming inside the building. So I can't really do a whole lot of conversating throughout the day. So I just throw on some tunes or a podcast or something and get with it, and get to work. And so that's what I got going on, man. What about you?
Oh man,
I hear you've been writing some music though.
I have been doing that a little bit. Yeah, we got I wrote a new song and we are putting that in for. We were playing the Mardi Gras DFW festival, which is a really big festival there at Fair Park in Dallas in a couple weeks, and Then we got a show a couple weeks after that. So, a couple coming up. So we've been practicing a little bit. We got that new song in the set already, and a surprise cover that we're going to do at Mardi Gras.
Ooh, that's cool.
Should I reveal it or not?
I don't know. Maybe you should tease it.
Okay. I'll just give the band name.
Yeah, cool.
Because they had a couple singles that were pretty big. Jimmy Eat World.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Throwing it old school. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
We've been working that one up, and it's starting to sound pretty good. We have a 30-minute set at this festival, and they run it strictly on time. They will cut you off if you're like a half minute over. And so this is probably going to be our closest cut. But we've run through it several times, and it's anywhere from 29 and a half to 30 minutes.
Ooh. So do y'all like party and everything when you run through it? Like, do y'all like your, like, what do you call that when you go off and you're like, you and the other guitar guy are like noodling together,
like
or
dueling
whatever?
And stuff? Yeah, I mean, we do everything just exactly how we're going to play it, pretty much, all structured out. And,
what happens if you get hit with beads in the face and then it slows you down?
The good thing is there's a couple of good things and bad things about this is that, being that I don't tour full time anymore, we're a pretty early slot.
Yeah.
People don't tend to throw beads too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I get hit in the face, the show must go on, basically.
Wait, didn't you say one time, like, you bloodied a nose or something? What did you do? And
I threw a pick out into the crowd one time, smoked this girl in the face with it.
No, that's honest. I was talking about your own self, but that's funny.
Okay.
Didn't you do something to yourself one time and then you kept playing? I thought you told me something like that. Like you whacked your head on something or something like that?
Oh, yeah. I chipped a tooth
that's right.
on a microphone.
And spit it out.
So when we first got wireless microphones, I didn't know how to take the microphone off of the clip. And so on a wireless microphone, you're supposed to go straight up from the top, through the top of the clip or whatever.
It's a good example you're showing me there.
Instead of that, I tried to pull it out towards my mouth like they would normally come out on like, a wired in mic or whatever. And it wouldn't come out, and I jerked it out, and it was about time for me to sing. And when I jerked it, it finally popped out and hit me right in the mouth, and I had a little piece of tooth in my mouth singing the next line. So that was awesome. I was real mad. I think I actually told that story on the podcast before.
Did you?
I think so.
I don't remember that.
Yeah,
sorry.
so
it's a good one, though.
ducks.
A lot of them. Dang.
But yeah, so anyway, I'm excited about that show, though. There tends to be, when we start, there's only, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand at most, probably, in the building, which is a big building. And then by the end of the night, there'll be 15,000 or so in there. Yeah. So it's a really, really cool thing to be a part of. And we are going to have a bus. And it's going to be awesome.
Man.
So we're going to have a place to relax during the show and stuff. So,
that's cool.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome, man. But other than that, man, I've been doing a lot of web editing and trying to earn a little bit of money now that hunting season's over. And so if you're a bride and you're out there listening and you owe me money, you better pay up, girl.
I like how you use the term earn a little money. I feel like a lot of times people are just like trying to get some money.
Yeah.
But you're trying to earn it.
That's it, man.
It's good. You got to earn it, dude.
It's earned.
That's what we're doing this week now.
I ain't playing the lottery,
Yeah. We got to go earn these big bucks,
That's
man.
it, man. We're heading up to earn some big bucks. I did a couple of duck hunts recently. We talked about one a trip that I went on, but I've been filming some duck hunts for a project that we're working on with the Element, and that's been fun. They smoked them the other day. We're hunting two ponds like real close to each other, and trying to keep birds from landing on one and then everything going down on that one. So. There was several people. I don't know how many people. We didn't quite get a limit, but I think they had 40 between all of them.
It's a lot of birds.
Yeah, it's a lot of big old ducks.
Did you put a picture of one of those stringers on? That's what I thought.
It's
on social media.
Social media. You can check it out. And it doesn't look like it. You can't see the birds, man. I think I counted, and there's like, not even half that you can see. And they're just all covered up. But they killed awesome mixed bag. We had a ton of gadwalls. They had shovelers. They killed a couple of canvasback drakes, a couple of wood duck drakes, It has big old, actually, and I don't shoot bluebills really anymore because I just can't. I don't like cleaning them and messing with them. But they had a huge bluebill, like one of the bigger ones I've ever seen. Big old, tuft of hair on or feathers on top of his head, you know. And anyway, there was I think I'm missing a duck or two in there, different type that we had, but they had ducks that you don't normally see together, you know.
Yeah.
So
well, there's some
cool.
canvasbacks in there. Did you say canvasbacks?
Some big canvasback drakes.
So when are we having poppers?
Well, I didn't get any of that meat. Oh, they shot a green wing teal. I did want to take that one, but I didn't, just because I didn't have the time. But I'm sure I could get some meat from them. We need to. But trying to nail down a podcast with those guys, and we were going to cook poppers then, I think. So if we can get that nailed down and worked out for you guys, then that should be fun.
Yeah, I want to get a hold of one of those canvasbacks whenever, like, as soon as they get here. So the thing with canvasbacks, the reason they almost went extinct, you might already know this, is that like they were overhunted, right? Because they were
market hunted.
Market hunting.
You know how they got their name, right? It's from the market hunting.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So this is what I've heard. I don't know if I hadn't like read official literature on this or anything, but I've heard that they used to ship them in canvas bags, and so. When they would ship them to maybe retailer or whatever it was, they ship them in this canvas bag, and on the bag it read, "Please send the canvas back." On the bag, and so they named them canvas bags.
That's cool.
Somehow I guess that came natural or whatever, but that's what I've always heard. I don't know if that's the truth or not. But.
Yeah. So the whole reason they had the problem though is that they were so good to eat. Right?
Yeah.
Like they were the best tasting duck.
That's what they say.
So I want to get one and breast it and then pluck it with the fat on and slow cook it fat side up and do that. Because I've done that before with a few ducks that were fattier, and man, is it good. So good. You know, you can do it medium rare with that fat. Just let the fat kind of render and crisp up on top. Dude, I'm telling you, duck fat is like one of the tastiest things.
I haven't really ever done that.
Really?
Yeah, to be honest.
Oh, man. It's one of those less is more kind of things. Like you put a little salt on it, that's about it.
Yeah. See, this is kind of weird, but I don't like the smell of ducks when I'm cleaning them. That's one smell I really don't like that much.
That's why you don't like those divers, because they really kind of smell.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean, all of them, though, they just have a weird smell to me. But I'll eat the mess of them when they're cooked like a popper. They don't really smell like that anymore, you know. But I don't know if they like retain that when they are cooked like you're talking about or not.
I didn't really notice it, but I don't know. I tend to like, if something stinks, I'll still eat it and see if it tastes good. So it doesn't really bother me. Well, think about it. Like, how many times do you open a package of cheese and be like, that smells good?
See, I just don't smell it. I eat it.
So do that to the duck?
I mean, I have smelled it and ate it still, though. But I mean, no, it's true for sure. Yeah, but it's very connected, so it's tough sometimes.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, speaking of eating things that stink, I forgot to mention this earlier. I had a buddy that used to eat Alpo dog food every once in a while.
You know,
he always thought it smelled so good, so he would try it.
I could see where it smells. Like, have you ever opened a can of refried beans?
Yes.
It smells the exact same.
And looks the exact same.
Looks the exact same, smells the exact same. It's the same stuff.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah. I never have tried it.
It's probably better than a chicken nugget for you, I guarantee you.
It probably is, man.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of chicken nuggets, I'm about ready for lunch, and it's like not even 10.
That's why I ate that nanner a while ago.
Who knows what time it is in this vehicle?
It's right now.
You can't figure out
when
how
the
to
time
change your
change.
clock.
Well, when the time change comes,
Is it really right now?
Yeah, pretty sure.
So it's not 9?
No, it's 8:48.
Holy smokes, we've been on the road a while.
I know it.
We got up early. This guy is scary. So anyway, let's try to get into the beef of what we're going to talk about. If you read the title of this podcast, you probably have a clue, but we're talking out-of-state postseason scouting, and we're talking our story, and we're giving things that we are going to try, things that we're going to do, things that have worked for us, and that doesn't mean that it works for everybody or that it is the right thing even sometimes. I mean, because we're pretty quick to admit and open with you guys on the podcast when we make mistakes, such as not hunting under oak trees in October in East Texas.
I could just jab my eyes out right now for that. It's just What were we thinking?
Yeah.
Well, let's concentrate on the good stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, what we are doing, like I said earlier, is we're making around up through the Midwest, and we've got a few cameras that were hung several months ago that are surely dead by now, especially with all the cold weather.
I don't know. We got those lithium batteries.
Did we put lithium in?
Yes, I spent that big dough.
Go on, dude. You're awesome.
I know it. Well, we'll see how good that works, because I did a little experiment. One of them I put the Energizer lithiums in, which are like, I guess, considered like the best. And then the other ones, I think, like Rayovac or somebody had a lithium or something.
Like the red Rayovac or something?
I don't remember what it was, but I used an off-brand lithium.
Yeah.
In one of them, I wanted to see if we could tell a difference in performance. And if not, we're going to go with those cheaper ones from now on.
Right, for sure. So we're going to check those, and I am excited about that.
Oh.
I wanted to hold off on this podcast until we check that, just to just gloat over our...
I don't know if gloating's a great thing to do. Does that have a negative
bragging.
connotation? It is.
Bragging,
That's what I thought.
But like to each other more than the listener, you know.
Gotcha.
But,
because our listeners already kill way bigger deer than us anyway.
I mean, some of them do, and you hear our big buck breakdowns.
No, I know. I
but,
was being sincere because I didn't kill a buck, but go ahead.
Anyway, just to have like something to talk about, like, man, we got a giant on there, or no, we didn't see anything, we hung it in a terrible spot, or man, both of them were stolen, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
All our cameras were stolen. So anyway, we decided not to do that so that we could get you guys a little something to listen to, this week.
And I like the tone of conservative optimism. It's a pretty good way to sit around and talk, you know, as opposed to like, I'm ticked at these guys for stealing our cameras.
Yeah, no kidding, man. There's enough negative things in the media world right now.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, the plan that I had for this was this guy over here that did not kill a buck, but passed great deer this year. I'm going to quiz him because he's very smart and very educated, and even though he didn't kill a buck, he could have killed a really nice buck on Texas public land this year that he decided to pass because he's a steward of the land. But I'm going to quiz him on, because we haven't really talked about this, because like he said earlier, he's been living in like a metal hat down in the bottoms, you know, working every day. We haven't talked a whole lot lately, and I don't know, like, we're literally sitting in this vehicle right now and have not spoken much about what our plans are up here. So I want to like kind of grill him and figure out his plans and discuss that, and hopefully come to a few agreements without being too vague on as to what we're going to do. Because sometimes we can tend to be like, yeah, let's just flow, you know, go with the flow and
rolling
see
and
what happens, which is a good plan too, in some senses. But it's always good to have ideas and then adjust, you know, as you see fit. I had an old coach who coached in the NFL for a long time, considered by many best special teams coach in the NFL ever. Frank Gans, who used to always talk about, we always did jazz sessions. And for those who don't know a lot about music, jazz was created off the fact that we're good musicians, and we all just like end up walking bar to bar down in New Orleans that evening and sitting in for 3 songs, and you got to figure out how to play with these guys in 3 songs, you know. And so there are certain aspects that these guys use to play together, but it's all just kind of figuring each other out on the fly. And so we talked about jazz sessions in the sense that there was a fumble or an interception, and everything has to happen, and you got to figure out who's got who and who's blocking who, and you know which way we're going to go with this thing. So we're going to have a jazz session right here in the hunting world, the hunting space. So I guess the first thing that I would ask you, Mike, is what are our plans this evening on a big perspective? I mean, first of all, we're going up here to break down some and find some new public spots. I mean, that's kind of the overall plan. But what are we looking at this evening? I mean, we got to grab the cameras this evening, right?
Well, this evening we have 2 cameras that we set out this fall that we want to get and assess and see what's on them, and that's pretty dang exciting. I mean, you and I have been had this in the back of our mind since we set this thing about how rewarding this camera pull is going to be for us, hopefully. So I can't wait to do that. But as we do that, we're going to go in and see what these areas that we've seen like in the rut time and see what they look like now, and see how, if the sign has changed, if the deer are still using them like they were, if grazing has changed, if there's any cattle around, if what the hunter pressure looks like, after, because we went up here and hung these cameras pre-rifle, I understand that these places get hit pretty hard sometimes during the gun season. So we're going to go see, what the hunter pressure had looked like then, and then hopefully be driving around some of these public places around, Deer 30 and just kind of catch some deer moving on some of these other places that we haven't got to spend as much time at.
Yeah.
And more of a observation from the vehicle, so you can be super mobile as opposed to like sitting in one spot. Because I feel like we can make it to 3 or 4 places in the time that deer will be on their feet in daylight to, kind of do a little glassing, a little bit of deer movement observations, and learn some things about a couple different places on a bed to feed. Because this time of year we're going to be in a hardcore bed to feed pattern. I mean, those deer, bucks are starting to shed, further north. And I mean, it is all about eating and surviving at this point in time.
And we've had cold weather pretty much across the nation lately.
Yeah.
So they should be in a pretty good pattern, even if the weather's not as cold today as it has been lately. We're hoping that they stick to that pattern somewhat and end up at a destination food source in time for us to see them, or somewhere where they're visible on the way. And there's not actually a lot of the stuff we'll see tonight. There's not like a ton of ag right up close to public in some of this stuff, but there is within mile and a half, 2 miles of there or whatever in a lot of places. And so what I think one thing you can do is assume by looking at topography a bit that, there's a draw that leads up and kind of heads out about 300 yards from that wheat field. If there are does in that wheat field right before dark, the buck is probably at the head of that draw just staging or whatever. Or if there's a big buck there, he probably came from that draw, which leads down into public. And even if he's not bedding on public that time of year, he may be a half mile from there. There's a good chance that November 10th next year, he's doing something on public. He's cruising through there. So
and it's not all about that specific buck either. It's about just the tendencies of
habitat.
Deer. Yeah,
deer
if the habitat's there and it's holding them, that's something that you and I talked about a little bit earlier, is that I'm pretty guilty of this. I get caught up on specific bucks. And like if we go out here and see a 160 today, like I'll be like, I want to go back and kill him. But that's not really the point. The point is to go up here and kill a really big mature buck. And if, say, that 160's doing this thing, you go in there and hang next year and a really, 145-inch 8-point rolls in that's 6 years old, like, you need to be happy with him because you accomplished your goal.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do, is figure out how deer are using the area and if a big buck is willing to use this area.
Right. I think one thing that makes it tough for us in some situations is, coming from where we come from, we are hung up on this whole like find a big deer, hunt the big deer thing, because like on a lot of the public stuff that we have hunted in Texas, if you don't have a big buck in your area, you're probably not going to see one.
It's not like they can just appear like, oh yeah, there's a 170 that was living across the on the other property and he's here. Like, it's not really how it works for us.
They don't range as far probably, because it's not an open country. They have everything they need in small spaces.
Yeah.
And like we were saying earlier, I mean, TR, for instance, this year, we saw Teenager a few times on cameras. He did not show up nearly as much as I thought he would. or as much as as often as he was in the postseason last year in the same spot. And then we also had a deer that was a 9-point that's kind of basket last year, and he was kind of basket this year, you know? And so, and I don't know how old he is, but he's 3 or 4, I think, this year. Probably 3. But, like, my point is, I don't know. I can't speak to this because I'm not a biologist, but, like, I think from genetics and possibly just, like, because they have a ton of acorns to eat in October and part of November or whatever. When the acorns are gone, I don't know what they eat a lot around there. It's probably just woody brow stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
it's like tough pickings, man.
So I kind of wonder if genetics and nutrition play into this equally. But, like, we don't always, like, there are deer with good, pretty decent genetics, but a lot of times the deer that score high in our area are just because they have 17 points, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, they get trashy.
Yeah, it's not, you know, it's a 150 with 17 points, or, you know, in other cases it may be a really big deer, but he's got 23 points or whatever, you know. So I think that's another thing that makes it tough is that, like, you've got, I mean, and I'm not trying to shoot a high scoring deer all the time, but, you know, you typically look for a, you know, if you get a big high scoring deer, it's kind of one you want to be in the area hunting, you know.
Sure, and that's the whole reason we're going in the Midwest is because it's where the big deer live, and we want to go shoot big deer, and it's fun, you know.
And there's more deer, you know. You see more deer, but my point is, I guess, is like back home, if you want to have a shot at killing a mature buck, you need to have 1 or 2 in that area. Because if you don't, you're likely not going to shoot.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, up in the Midwest where it's open, you might have a deer move 1.5 miles in a day easy. I mean, it could take him, you know, 20 minutes if he really was, you know, on a dead walk, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. And there's no absolutes. Like, that can't happen in East Texas. It hasn't happened for either of us ever.
Right.
You know, like, we've
if
never
they do
been.
That, they typically die because they're going past somebody with a rifle.
And that's the other thing is that in our area, like, the age structure is not great because, okay, we've got antler restrictions, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people who look at that like, all right, he's bigger than 13, I'm going to shoot him.
Yeah.
That's not really the concept here.
He's also a real wide 2-year-old.
Yeah,
you know,
like
or whatever.
The concept is to grow older deer.
Yeah.
And
which is, I mean, we've talked about this too. I don't necessarily, I mean, it's, to me, if that makes that person happy, that's great. Now, if they're just going to brag about it and put it on Facebook, it's a little different thing.
Yeah,
you know?
shoot what you want, but I wish that, like, I'm all for someone shooting something that makes them happy, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wish that we could kind of turn the tide a little bit to where older deer made people happy. You know, and maybe that's what we need to talk about a little bit more.
Yeah,
you know,
for
like,
sure.
Just like how cool it is to shoot a big mature buck, and how much more meat you get off of a big mature buck. You know, like a 2-year-old deer, he's going to dress out at like 65 pounds.
Yeah,
little bitty. You shoot a 5-year-old, he's going to dress like 110.
Yeah,
you know, like he's a lot bigger.
For sure. I mean, and you can tell. Like, remember I think we posted in a PLC last year from Postseason Scout, and we had a video of 2 bucks fighting in like February. You remember that?
Yeah.
They weren't really fighting. They were just kind of like sparring, but they were way different age class. One looked like about a 4-year-old, and the other one looks like a 1-year-old. And he just looks like a giant compared to him.
It was like a Chihuahua and a Great Dane looking thing, you know? Like, it was crazy.
We ended up getting that buck on film again this year, and he is a tank, man. And he doesn't score much higher. He's just a kind of a decent size 8-point, you know, but he's just a tank body, and that's a trophy, you know, to me. And I agree with you. Like, maybe we need to understand that, like, an 11-inch deer that's got 38 inches of mass and is 5 or 6 years old is a trophy. You know, that's a great deer. It's not that it has to be 13 inches to be a trophy, you know. So there's all different things to talk about there, but I guess my point is back to it. We're kind of going down some rabbit holes here, but I think that we get that mentality of gotta find a buck to hunt, or you're just sitting in the woods from Texas. And up in the Midwest, it's not the case all the time. Like, we talked to Zach Faribault a while back. We've probably mentioned this since on the podcast, but, you know, he's like, you know, honestly, we don't even really run trail cameras because there's a mature buck on every property we hunt, you know, and that's cool. And not that, you know, we're basically where we're hunting is going to be, you know, probably not quite that status, but a lot better than where we come from. And so, you know, we've got some trail cameras out, but to kind of assume things from our drive tonight, or deer drive as you call it, you know, we're going to assume that if there are deer or mature deer, you know, really I can assume in this area that if there's does using this wheat field in November, there are bucks chasing those does up into that wheat field from X spot that's close to public or on public, you know.
Oh boy.
So anyway, that's kind of what we're doing. We're looking for tonight. I mean, I've got a few things in mind. One thing that we want to do is we don't want to get too far from. We don't even know where we're staying really, but we don't want to get too far from a home base that can quickly get us back on the way home in the morning, because we've got a few places that we're going to be checking out on the way home tomorrow. So I don't know. This could be a little tip. It's something that we're doing, but you know, we're making this run up here for a few different reasons. And on the way, you know, like we're scouting the way back so that we can, you know, if we were to spend all our time scouting where our destination is tonight in the morning, then we wouldn't have a whole lot of time to scout it. But if we push back an hour towards home, and then, you know, that gives us a little extra time to scout, and we scout that spot, and then we get headed back in that direction home, and we get another hour and a half, and, you know, we're making it back so that we can just kind of plan our time more effectively so that we don't get back at midnight, you know. And I think that's kind of the plan for tomorrow. But tomorrow we're going to get a little more like in depth with it probably, huh?
Yeah, it's all going to depend on really how tonight goes, you know, kind of what we do tomorrow. But you and I kind of debated this a little bit, and we've talked about it. We don't have a solid plan yet. I kind of looked at the map and have a couple different routes, different things we could do, and it's going to kind of depend on where we're at time-wise. You know, we're talking about trying to wake up early and drive a little bit in the dark to get somewhere. That way we have plenty of time. And we talked about, are we better served like getting closer to home and going and spending a lot of time on these places that we'll for sure be able to make, you know, once, twice, maybe 3 times in the fall? Or are we better off going and scouting like the places that are further away because we probably won't be back to scout them at all, you know, because it's going to be like a go up there and hunt kind of thing. And I kind of lean towards the idea that I want to go scout the stuff that's further away from home. That way I can go up there and have a pretty efficient hunt. Yeah. As opposed to drive home and go hunt or scout the stuff that's closer, because I feel like I could still make it back there maybe for like a turkey hunt or even preseason scouting, you know, or even early season scouting.
We talked about how if you're 3-4 hours, maybe even 5 from home, you can leave at 4 or 5 o'clock on a Friday after work and be there by 10 and be scouting a whole weekend or hunting a whole weekend, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to like some of these spots that we're looking at are 6 to 8 or 9 hours away, and those are not just like quick weekend trips. You know, it's just it sounds crazy, but the difference in 3 or 4 hours can make it a much different trip, you know.
Well, you think about this, like you get off work on a Friday and pack all your stuff in the truck and head out. And if it's a 5-hour trip, you're hunting the next morning. Yeah. If it's an 8 or 9 hour trip, you ain't doing it. You're sleeping in. Yeah. And that's the difference. Like, you really can't do that in a 2-day weekend. Yeah. You need an extra day to go on those 8 or 9 hour trips.
Right. And that's I mean, that's what we're looking at, you know, is there's some spots that are in that 6 to 9 hour range that are on the way. They're basically no further north, than because we got to get back down to Texas, and we're going to look at those spots probably pretty heavily, I guess. I mean, that's what we talked about a couple days ago, and unless something changes tonight, that's probably what we'll end up doing. And there may be one little spot on the way home that's pretty much like on the route that I'm looking at that we may be able to stop. That's about 4 or 5 hours out. But like you said, I mean, something that's, I don't know. I was recently looking at several pieces of property, and you were too. You sent me some stuff that's in that like 3 to 4 hour range, and has turkeys on it. So it's we have the potential to go up there and hunt turkeys and learn the property without having not wasted, but kind of wasted a trip up to further areas, I guess.
And the other thing is too, the stuff closer to home. Now, I don't like to make too many assumptions when it comes to deer. I feel like that's a trap you can fall into. But let me just say this: the stuff that's closer to home will always be more similar in habitat than the stuff that's further away from home that we're used to, right? So, like, you go somewhere and say, oh, this is a creek bottom. I generally know how deer move through a creek bottom. They may not do that here, but at least I have a starting point.
Right.
As opposed, you go somewhere else and be like, okay, this is a cornfield. I've never seen one of these. So what do I do here, right?
Exactly. That's a good point to be made. I mean, you can... and you're right about that, and you're gonna have probably more people close to home than some of these other areas that we're checking out. And that's you're just getting closer to metroplexes and stuff, and that can make it tough. So it may be one of those things like if you're going to buy the out-of-state license, you might not even want to spend time there anyway, because you're going to be run over with people. So I mean I don't really know. Like, I guess that's our broad perspective on this week, what we're going to do while we're up here in the Midwest. Now, to break it down a little more and to get a little more detailed, this afternoon when we go in to check the camera, are we going to make any quick circles through there, or are we just going to read the camera info and get elsewhere? Or, obviously read the camera in the car or whatever.
Yeah, well, the two cameras we have out, they're kind of in very different places, and the places are a lot different. For one of them, I'm thinking about walking in from a different direction completely. And
you mentioned this.
Just go see, because it's about the same distance, so just kind of go that other way and just see what all that looks like.
Yeah, there'd be a pretty good bit of timber there probably, huh?
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about?
And so you can walk through there, look for rubs or whatever, and see what you can find.
See if you can find some oak trees and stuff.
Ooh. White oaks.
White oaks.
The elusive white oak.
Yeah, at least where we're from.
Yeah. And so maybe do that. I thought about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, always looking for sign on the ground. Keep your eyes on the ground. You need to look for an arrowhead. You got to be keeping your eyes on the ground for that.
Dude, I don't know. I can't do it. I
can't. But then the other one is a little bit smaller of property. It's not small any means, but it's something we can cover more ground on. And we might do a little zigzagging in there or something, just to look around and try to maximize your time on the property, as opposed to standing here and questioning. I'm not criticizing you because you question things, but
I'm very questionable.
But as opposed to standing here and questioning why this rub is here, maybe take a phone picture of it. That way it's logged in your mind that thing exists, and then everything you see, try to pinpoint piece it all together, and then whenever we go home or go to the motel and it's dark and you can't do anything else, we can look at all that stuff and talk about what we saw and why is it there, and also be able to bounce those thoughts off of each other, because I feel like a lot of times we're going to be separated by 100, 200 yards or something today,
right,
when we're walking around. so instead of like spending time just like staring at this tree, thinking about, okay, could you put a stand here or whatever? Like, don't worry about that stuff, because I do that. Like, I'm all kinds of caught up on stand trees, man. I love stand trees.
Yeah, you are for sure.
Yeah, if I see a big old oak tree, I'm like, oh man, look at that thing. But when in actuality, a little old willow tree is probably the better tree to hang in. But
well, not as fun. I guarantee you that. I did that several times this year.
It's wispy in the willows up there, doesn't it?
Dude, the problem I ran into with the willow trees is all the limbs.
Yeah.
So, like, there's not many shooting lanes. And I don't know if I should even say this or not, but most of them were not even as big around as my pinky. But if they were dead, I was breaking them off. You know what I'm saying?
Just functioning as the wind.
Yes,
at that moment.
essentially. And so it gave me a few little shooting holes. And I didn't do anything to the trees at all, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you'd do more harm hanging your stand in the bark of that tree than, than you would
Don't
breaking off dead limbs.
Don't say that too loud. They're going to start making us put rubber bumpers on our stand or something.
I know. Good grief. Good grief.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But anyway, a point I would make real quick is that you mentioned that there may be some deer already shedding, and obviously deer in the past have shed, every year.
Yeah.
We're not really looking for sheds. We have been known to go on a shed hunting trip, and they're fun, and I love them. But one thing that is important when you're spending, you don't have to spend, $200 to $500 on out-of-state shed hunting licenses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you do if you want to kill a deer.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to be spending that money, we're going to be trying to figure out how to kill a deer, not how to find a shed.
Yeah.
But
and
it would be awesome to find like a 60-inch side.
Oh, no kidding. I'd be all about it. If I kick one, I'm going to pick it up. Don't you worry. But, even with us, when we are shed hunting, it usually turns into scouting.
Yes, and that's been a problem we've talked about lately, especially in Texas where there's hogs, is like we kind of have gone out on some postseason stuff where it's basically a hog shed scouting hunt trip.
Yeah,
It's like we're hunting for hogs, we're scouting for deer sign, we're looking for sheds, and it kind of becomes this big cluster of just, we don't know what we're doing here, and we're just walking in the woods, and there goes some hogs running, and we can't catch them, we're running after them.
Because we're looking at deer rubs.
I ran over a shed, I didn't even know it because I was chasing hogs, and there's a bed, but I was looking for sheds instead, so I didn't see it. It's like, man, so... Yeah, focusing on that stuff, it kind of stinks because you try to make the most out of your time, but I think you got to focus on whatever you feel is most important, and if that's shed hunting, that's fine. This time of year, it could be great to walk the property, learn a little bit about it, and find sheds, and also get permission from a landowner to do that.
Well, that goes to that efficiency thing. And if we had more time to go on this trip, and we had like a week of vacation, just say, hey, man, let's just go up there, didn't have to provide for families or whatever, just go up here and have fun. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd love to concentrate on hunting sheds, probably do a little bit later in the year, of course, but but we need to make the most of the time that we have, and that is not very much time.
No,
so we got to do what it takes, acquire the most deer information that we can in as quick a fashion as possible, and move on to the next place.
And I make that statement because I may be different than a lot of people, but I was a pretty good free safety, and to be one, you have to be able to see the field. I mean, you have to see every route being run, just about. If there's 5 receivers, you got to be able to see 4 of them pretty much, But when we are walking in the woods, if I'm looking for something, that is like, it is hard for me to see other things.
Yeah.
So like if I'm looking for sheds, I'm probably not going to see many rubs unless I walk right up on them.
Yeah. See, I'm a lot different
You're
than
different,
that.
for sure. And I was going to say that.
But that probably means I'm not as good as like concentrating on the one thing.
Like if y'all could see this cell tower up there that I'm looking at, Casey can see a rub from that distance. Okay. I mean, it's like ridiculous. He'll be like, there's a rub up there. And so I'm looking, I'm like looking at all these trees that I can see that are like 10 yards ahead and the stick stuff, and I would get to those trees and there's no rub. And then, okay, I'm looking 10 yards ahead and get to those trees and hadn't seen a rub yet. And I'm like, well, maybe we've already passed. I'm just an idiot. And then next thing I know, 10 yards later, we walk up to this rub, and I'm like, I'm not sure how you saw that at all. This is thick in here, you know.
A couple of carrots a day.
That's it, dude.
That's what it takes.
Is that what you do?
That's what I do. A couple of carrots a day.
You put it in your shake?
In my shake in the morning, dude.
Your protein shake?
Actually, I've been going sans protein of any sort lately. I don't ever do powders, but I do Greek yogurt for protein a lot because it's a really good source for it in the mornings. And but I've been trying to cut some of that holiday weight, so I've been going just veggies and fruits.
It's good. I think that's undervalued. Though I know we're getting off a little bit here.
Well, this is way like the going without protein.
Yep, I do. I think it's undervalued sometimes. I didn't do a lot of protein in college.
Yeah.
And I still gained a lot of weight. But anyway, so we're not shed hunting. We might find a shed.
We have established that.
And so what are you, when we're out there walking, what are you going to be looking for? Go ahead and take some things and prioritize 3 to 5 different things that you're looking for.
Rut sign is probably number one,
being
scrapes and rubs.
Okay.
And then after that, human sign would be my second thing. That would be the highest priority. Just seeing if there's old stands, new stands, boot tracks, how fresh they are, and maybe even shotgun shells. If we go somewhere where there's a bunch of quail or pheasants or something and dudes are in there all the time messing around, then you're not going to have mature bucks that are going to tolerate a whole bunch of that.
You better be on them in October if you're going to, probably.
Exactly.
So.
Then after that, probably food sources. Whether that be on private or like we talked about white oak trees earlier, or even early season stuff. If we see something like that goldenrod that the deer seem to be hammering back home, see if they, if there's that stuff looks brown and shriveled now, but you can kind of tell what it is.
Right.
And besides that, it's kind of hard to guess at what the deer are eating early season this time of year in a place that you don't know well.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's a great way to tell that.
Yeah.
Then from there, just I would say general deer sign, because we're so used to not seeing a lot of trails because deer just meander a lot of times through our area back home. And there are a few trails, but I can't say that of the deer I saw this year from the stand, I would say 30% of them or less were on trails. Would you agree with that?
Dude, they just go, it's just thick and brushy junk, and they just go through it.
General movement area.
General movement areas.
This is where I'm going to move through this little swath of 100 yards.
Yeah.
And
whereas the deer I shot this year off of public,
he literally walked through a tunnel.
Yeah, in the Midwest. I didn't shoot him at 33 because I knew he was going to walk down the trail and get to 23.
He had nowhere else to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's just like they're going to follow the trails there, and so it's different.
That's going to be kind of another thing that I'm going to be looking for is trails to and from food sources, places where you can tell deer walk this area often, and maybe even how they use this area. So part of this is learning about a new place, right? It's not about going up there, I know all this stuff and I'm just going to go up here and figure it out. It's more about I've never really hunted up here. I want to see how they treat this line of timber, or how they walk around this hill or over it or through that little saddle in it, that kind of thing. And evaluate how the deer are using the area, how much water means to them.
Right. Will
be pretty interesting to me. Depending on where we're at, we're probably going to visit some places that are pretty wet and pretty dry in the next couple days.
And then you see, if it's a green food source that they're using, how much do they need the water after eating there all night?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you made this point the other day, we killed a deer who was probably visiting some sort of green food source at some point, in his daily or weekly activities, right? And if that food source is there now, it's probably going to be there in late October too.
Right.
And it just all depends on what kind of year we had, on if they're relying on man-made food sources or not. This year, I feel like was pretty wet in the early part of the season, and there was a lot of natural browse. And then as the year pressed on, it got pretty dang dry towards the end of deer season.
We didn't. We actually had several food sources that we had planned on hunting in different areas that never made.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just not enough rain from September to, December, basically.
And it really kind of messed with our heads on some plans that we had, and that's why it's like, okay, we need to stop concentrating on specific bucks as much.
Right.
But it's hard not to do.
It is.
I digress. Anyways.
So where does bedding rank in there? Is it after all that, or does it something that you passed?
I don't know.
I feel like it's an important thing, but it's also very hard to determine what is using that and when it was using it because everything's dead.
Yeah. Tell me this. Are we going to hunt any of this stuff that's non-rut-ish? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
in my mind, bedding, it sort of matters in the rut, but at the same time, deer are going to be on their feet, and they're going to be moving around. So he might visit that bed like once every 48 hours to take a break or something, but he's not going to be there real long just because they're, you know how it is in the rut. They're up chasing does. They don't have time to sleep, and that's why they get so run down.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just wonder, I guess so, like if we are hunting a food source in October, you probably want to be near bedding.
It'll probably matter then.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it probably is important. I probably should have.
But I mean, I don't know that it's any more important than the things you listed. I'm just wondering, is that something you're going to be looking for, or is it just going to be like, well, if I'm looking and there's a bunch of rubs, then I might think about it, kind of deal,
Yeah, I think that's kind of in there with that deer sign stuff I talked about. Like trails and stuff, because trails are going to lead from beds to food.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're on the trail looking around at stuff, you're going to probably find some bedding, and you can. I think assessing between buck and doe bedding is going to be sort of important. I would think, and it's nice to go to the Midwest where like there's a drastic difference in body size as opposed to a not so drastic difference. Bucks are bigger everywhere, but
you've also one way of determining is like doe family groups, especially this time of year, are going to be, like imagine there's going to be several of them close to food because it's cold or has been, and then should be, if there's a buck bed, it's going to be solo and it's going to be by itself, or it's going to be kind of behind these does in relation to the food source.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, and that, like, other than that, like, it can get kind of difficult, I guess, to look at sometimes. And another thing to think about is like difference in body size for us. Well, a big doe could be equally as big as any big buck in our area.
Yeah. Sure.
It might make it kind of difficult, but I don't know. Just being able to see bedding areas can probably help you as far as when you get to the rut. Then if there's that food source is there next year.
Mm-hmm. And then at that point, it's like, okay, where are the does at? And maybe it's good to know where the doe bedding is because the bucks are going to be cruising that.
You might hunt the edge of that if you can get in on it. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. I mean, I kind of feel the same way about it. Like you got to find the sign, but then you've also got to take into account after that, what does the hunting pressure look like? And then, if there's a lot of hunting pressure out there on that sign, well, how old is that sign? Is it, is it?
And is that sign laid down in the middle of the night?
Right.
That's the other thing.
That's the tough thing. We experienced that in Iowa last year, where there was some incredible sign right by the road.
Yeah.
And we talked to some of our buddies, and there was a sign everywhere. But we talked to some of our buddies. They're like, "Yeah, I know there's a lot of sign right by the road, but typically that is made at night, and you just cannot really rely on that information, as much." Mm-hmm. Which at the same time, there are exceptions everywhere across the board. I mean, there are always big bucks hopping roads, during the daytime. So
finding those little niches, man, where
if there's no hunting pressure there, if it's a niche that people either won't or don't go, then their deer are going to use it more than likely if it has what they need there,
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's one thing that, I guess I kind of would mention is that going through our maps here to try to figure out the places we want to look at tonight, there might be some stuff that we look at that's near townships. And because you mentioned that earlier, and, looking at public parcels that are close to parks, city parks, or maybe, especially in the Midwest where like the city just ends at the end of town. Like there's nothing else, but after that it's, cornfields and CRP grass and, big tree lots and stuff or whatever, creek bottoms. Those can come up right to town basically, and those deer might not be bothered very much by people,
Yeah.
I mean, people, and not to mention you said this earlier, but your quail and pheasant guys probably aren't walking up to the back of town and blasting their shotguns all over the houses and stuff. So
it's something that I brought up earlier, not to pat myself on the back, but I was like, I never thought about that, was the fact that, dude, you can take a decoy and go to one of these places that like probably doesn't look that great, but butts up to some kind of private or something that has pretty good property, and you can get that deer on the public ground that way, and so it's not always about what that specific piece looks like. It's about what's around it and all this and that. If you got a place that, man, this property looks great, there's big trees everywhere, and then all the way around it, it's like 40 acres, a really sweet spot, right? Everything around it's hay pasture. Bad hay, not alfalfa. It's probably going to be minimal on the deer. But if you got a place that's got 3 foot tall grass and one spindly tree on the back corner, but everything around it is like sweet deer habitat, dirty dog deer habitat, that's going to be a good spot to hunt, even though that particular property isn't the greatest piece. Right? But it is, because it's not, what makes a property isn't, it's just like they talk about it in real estate, you sell the neighbors just as much as you sell the property itself.
Buy the worst house in the best neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about what's surrounding it, and because deer just move, right? They're not, especially when you're talking about the Midwest where deer roam, you're going to have to consider where these deer are coming from, where they're going, and what all area they're using.
Right. Yep. Good points made there, man. As far as dress goes today, what are you wearing out there?
What am I wearing? To scout?
Besides your Element T-shirt.
My Element T.
It is sweet.
I brought my lacrosse rubber boots in case we run into something wet, because we might go in some marshy stuff.
You going to pack those in?
Probably going to assess on the map what the place is going to be like, because there's some places that probably going to be pretty dry, and we're going to be like, okay, I'm not too worried about it there. But I did bring... that subalpine hoodie that I got? I think it's the Traverse Cold Weather or something like that.
Sweet.
Yeah, we're wearing that just because it's probably the most comfortable hoodie I've ever owned.
Yeah. It looks good too. You could go to a dinner with that thing.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And you kind of pop your collar and be pretty sharp in it.
It's form-fitting, just a touch, but it's still kind of warm and cozy. I just like it. So I bought that just because it's cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
I've, it's going to be probably pretty warm today, but in the morning time it'll be pretty chilly, and but it can be pretty cold, and if I'm walking, I will heat up quick.
Oh, yes.
So
I remember you were shedding clothes in Iowa last year. It was you're carrying around.
It was freezing cold that first morning.
Yeah.
It was 19 degrees.
Man.
But, once you get out and walking, so, if you're doing this kind of stuff, postseason scouting. And the thing is, here's the thing. I know this is, elementary for a lot of you guys out there listening, but you guys aren't sending us emails going, hey, thanks for the tip. I did learn one thing from you. The guys that are sending us emails are the guys that are like, hey, thank you guys for what you're doing. I killed a deer because of you guys this year, which is probably not true. But I'm just saying there are all kinds out there, so I'm giving you all kinds of tips, and some of them are maybe advanced and some not so much. But, if you haven't done this postseason scouting yet, make sure that you are You got a packable jacket or and probably nothing really bigger than a midway anyway.
Yeah.
Because you're going to warm up quick whenever you get out there. And then, yeah, you probably should carry a backpack to pack it in.
I think that something that I learned a lot is that you need to wear pants that are rugged and that things can't stick into or grab a hold of.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get them little goat heads or burrs or whatever.
Yeah.
Those little fuzzy things that like don't look like anything, but they're like triangular.
They're like arrow shaped or
yes,
whatever.
And they will just, you'll get 1,000 of them on.
Yeah, I actually didn't bring very rugged pants on this trip, but I know that at least some of the stuff that some of the country that we'll be seeing should be okay on at least the places that we walked into to came cameras.
It's like a set of like canvas pants.
Yeah.
Like straight up just like trying to dare a snake to bite through it kind of
The thing about those though is you got to be careful with the fit because if they are tight at all while you're walking, they'll wear you out. I mean, you'll be exhausted by, in way quicker amount of time.
Yeah.
Because you're fighting the pant the whole time. So you got to be careful with those. You can't just buy like a cheap pair and expect that they'll do what you need sometimes.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean binoculars are a good thing to have because it's great to not. It's great to like be like, I think that looks like a stand over there 300 yards, but I don't want to walk all the way over there. You know.
And it's also cool to see deer. You always hope to see deer and see bucks or whatever, and if you jump a buck, it's good to know where he came from.
Yeah.
And if you can get your binos on him pretty quick, you can probably tell where he jumped up from. Go check out his bed.
Yeah, and if he is half horned, he might have
See
dropped
if there's a shed there.
Yeah.
And then chase him till the other one falls off. No, don't do that. I'm just kidding. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's today. What are we gonna do tomorrow, man?
I mean, that's what I'm looking at doing. Is same type of stuff. We're not. We're going to be more in the car this afternoon and more on boots on the ground.
So we have a lot of ground to cover tomorrow.
So yeah, we got a ton of options, and so it's just going to really it's going to be like we're going to drive probably, and if we see a reason to get out and walk, then we're going to, and if we feel like we can see into the property pretty well from the truck, there's no reason, there are reasons, but you just got to be efficient with your time, and you go, well, I can see what's there, looks good. Sometimes you might even be able to find. No, here's something that you could do is, say there's a pretty good draw running through your property or creek bottom or something, and you don't want to. You feel like you can see in there pretty good. You don't want to go too far in there because kind of know what's there. You think you do. Well, say the draw comes up to the road. It goes all the way through that property, but it comes up to the road in a certain spot. You can drop off in there for 100 yards and find that night sign and go, there are definitely big bucks here, or there's not really, or there probably isn't. So that's one thing I guess you could use the night sign to your advantage by doing. But yeah, we'll just be kind of assessing as we go to see. And I mean, you're the map guy, so I mean, what are you looking at on the maps whenever you have kind of prepared for this trip?
Well,
just remote capability. I guess?
Well, you have to kind of, I guess, operate with a catch-22 here, because you want things that are remote, but it also has to be kind of on our way home. We don't want to be driving 4 hours out of the way, because that's an 8-hour waste of time, and that's pretty much most of your daylight. So,
but I mean, I'm saying, I guess remote from the perspective of getting away from people.
Yeah.
Getting a mile and a half back.
Sure. I think that and this is tough for me because I'm always drawn to these big parcels, right? Because big parcels, you think oh, there's a lot of room there. Well, does every other guy that's wearing green, black, brown, and tan think the same thing?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try my best when we're picking out places to go look at to not really worry that much about it, but see the big picture of the layout of the land. For instance, it's like we were talking about earlier. If this parcel's, a 120 acres or something, but it's got 2,000 acres worth of great deer habitat all the way around it. Well, it's 2,000 acres that you're deer hunting, and you just can only go on 120 of it, right?
I think. So, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I think you just and you look at the habitat that may be on the property even and go, well, I think that deer could be there. It doesn't look fantastic, but there's not a whole lot going on around there according to the map, and we'll go fly by it real quick and see. It's kind of on the way.
Yeah,
and so don't skip over stuff like that to go see the 10,000 acre property.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've noticed about this 10,000 acre properties or whatever they might be is that somebody along the way is like, oh, well, I can't really make it back there. I've gotten, I just can't go on the walk. So they go in there, the WMA or whoever's operating the facility, and they make roads.
Yeah.
Through these huge parcels, and you're like, this looks great. Whenever you just click on it, it's like, oh yeah, 13,042 acres, cool.
Yeah.
But there's 17 parking areas, 42 roads, and a bathroom in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, is that really going to hunt like a 13,000 acre place, or is it a bunch of 40 acre places?
Yeah. That's frustrating for guys like me.
Yeah.
At
like
least.
us, and maybe it's because we're young and we're snooty about it, but like we can go out and go and do things. So, and I understand like access is a big deal. We want everybody to be able to hunt. Like I'm with you on that, but at the same time, let's leave a few places pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, not to mention when we talked about this on a podcast that hasn't been released yet, but man, if there are not many deer on that property because there are roads and people driving all over it, then it doesn't matter if the guy, with the limp can't go very far in there.
Yeah.
None of us are going to see any deer because people are driving all over. So you got to be careful with how much access you allow, because it won't take long for people, how many people you allow on it and everything, and because it won't take long for deer to figure it out quick, and then now nobody really has the opportunity to shoot many deer like it could have been.
And I think that's something that you have to learn to eval on maps. You got to know how to look at a place and say, there's a lot of easy access here. I don't know if there's truly hunter pressure, but at least I know there's easy access.
Yeah.
And I want to go to a place that doesn't have that easy of an access.
Right.
There very well might be big deer there, and there might not be a lot of hunter pressure there, but you can probably look at a map and say, this is 130 acres that hunts like 2,000. Well, this is 4,000 acres that's going to hunt like a bunch of little tracks.
Right.
And you need to be able to evaluate that and tell, okay, I really, this one might be only 30 miles from this one, and it's smaller, but I think I want to go to it because I feel like my chances of using my tools and my skills to my advantage are better there than what they would be on the place I can ride my four-wheeler on.
Right. Yeah. Another little quick tip I would probably give is my dad. I learned this from my dad, but every time we go in a convenience store in a little town that is near where we hunt or might want to hunt, he buys a local newspaper for like 50 cents. And yeah, I mean,
just to look at what's going on.
Yeah, you see what's going on. What's real estate going for? Like, is there a demand for that? Or are people, sitting on their property still? Is it, like just things like that can clue you into what's going on in the area. And if you go door knocking or whatever, you've got a lot better sense of things that are going on. I mean, is the local football team in the playoffs? That's something you can mention. Hey, I saw, that you guys got a Tigers sign out in your front yard. You guys are doing pretty good this year, aren't you?
Well, yeah, let me tell you.
Yeah, making small talk, and just kind of like acting like, or trying to care about the community, So stuff like that. That's we always get one, and more than anything, it's just interesting to read through some of that stuff. It's funny, but I think that's something that.
But you can also flip over if it's a small town. They may not have an outdoor rider, but if it's a big enough town, they'll probably have an outdoor rider who's writing about something in the general area, maybe the county or something, and you might kind of get tuned into like, maybe rut patterns or what's going down. If there's
an opportunity
these days, not to go negative with it, but you might see something like, hey, CWD just came to this county or something. That's something you got to worry about nowadays. Or it might be a deal where it's like it helps you with the regulation too. Like, hey, you can't remove deer from here or something like that because
Right.
of a CWD issue.
Right.
It's good to be in touch and in tune with where you're hunting. I think that's a good point, man.
Yeah. Well, you got any other thoughts about this?
Man, I'm sure I'll have a lot after we do a little bit of it, and get a little bit. I can talk about this for hours and hours because I love looking at maps and deciding where I'm going to go, and I'll just say this. When you look at a place, I know even though I said, there's stuff that's like what we know back home, but when you look at a place, don't give yourself unnecessary parameters. Don't say, well, there's not a stand tree, or, well, it doesn't have any water on it, or, well, it doesn't have this, doesn't have that. Deer are going to be where they aren't getting shot. That's how it works, right?
Yep.
And you might be going to a remote enough spot where you can worry about other things too, but just have an open mind when you look at places to go scout and hunt, because you never know when you're going to be like, holy smokes, like, this place is so small that everybody's looked over it and it is freaking cool. Or like, man, this place is huge. Everybody's walking to the back corner. There are 3 stands in the back corner of this 4,000 acre place.
Yeah.
But guess what? I just saw a buck in the headlights on the way in right here. Like, that's happened to me before. And it's crazy how, if you just keep an open mind about where you're going to go, what you're looking for, how much more stuff you can see. And I'm not talking about deer, but deer too. But like how much more of the property you can take in and really grasp how it's operating and what's going on there.
Yeah. They're a hardy species and prolific and adaptable, you know, and so, like you said, they're going to live where they don't get shot, you know, and that could be in somebody's backyard. It could be on a, huge tract of 2-foot grass, you know, or it could be in the thickest of thick swamps, So it's a good point to be made for sure, man. And, maybe we do, I don't know, we'll see. We may do a part 2 after we get done doing some of this stuff on the way home in the dark. But I hope you guys got a few tips out of this thing. I would ask that we're still trying to plan our 2018, and we don't really know where we're going on our big fishing trip. And usually, at least for me, it pretty much has always been, and for the both of us now the last couple of years, it has been a trip to basically the Rocky Mountains, fly fishing for a native species of trout. And, I don't need to hear, hey, y'all go over and catch the taimen or whatever, because probably not going to happen. But if it's somewhere that we could drive or fly for cheap and pack our stuff on our backs and spend a couple of days trying to catch natives, that'd be cool. And if you guys have an idea, please email us. You can go to our website, theelementwild.com, and there's an email form there you can send into. Or you can just Facebook message or Instagram message us as well. And I just want to hear what's out there, because I'm having trouble, as opposed to usually, figuring out a spot that kind of stays within our budget and also, is cool native trout species that we haven't caught. So a lot of the species in the Southwest we've started to catch. So we're trying to figure out what we need to do, and we're going to come up with those plans here in a second, probably while we eat lunch. But, that'd be cool if you'd send us something. Don't forget as well that we have a live podcast coming up at the Legal Draft in Arlington, Texas, Legal Draft Beer Company. It's at 2 p.m. It's a pint night, so I think it's more like a pint afternoon. But Legal Draft doesn't stay open all night. And anyway, it's going to be a fun time. We're going to have, it's a Texas BHA event, essentially, where all the backcountry hunters and anglers guys are going to try to get together and
finally recover after deer season. Everybody, people have been like, hey, let's do something. Like, no, ain't nobody got no time right now.
No.
So it's kind of finally like the big get together after hunting season, and that's kind of going to be what our podcast is about, like reflecting on the season and talking to some of the other guys and stuff. So it should be cool, man. I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's good. It's a collaboration with Stormwater Creek guys who have become friends of ours, and we're just going to discuss our seasons, tell some stories, open up to questions from whoever ends up showing up. And like like I said, I think BHA will have some merch there, I believe. So you can buy some cool swag, shirts there and stuff, and we'll have some shirts as well. So there should be a PLC from this trip. So be looking for that in the next week or so, and it'll be on our new 2018 YouTube playlist. So anything else? Is that it?
Leave us a review, guys.
Oh, yeah. A review would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, reviews are greatly helpful. I don't even know if that's the right way to say that. They're super helpful.
Super.
And it's always cool to see what y'all have to say. And it has been cool to get some of those like responses like, hey, man, you really helped me in the woods this year, or whatever. Like, I'm glad that the people that we've had on the podcast could help you, because I know that what I said didn't, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's the experts that are helping.
Yeah. But it feels good, guys. It gives us a drive to keep doing this stuff. And, you know, we love hunting. We're never going to stop that. But this podcasting's fun, too. But whenever when y'all say nice words, it gets a little pep in our step.
Yeah, it helps us to feel like we're getting the right guests on here, and gives us the inspiration to get more. So thank you guys for that. I love you guys. God bless you as you go through your week. And we'll be talking to you soon. Remember, this is your element.
Living it.
Hey everybody, listen up. I got mega huge news. Meat Eater Live is heading back out on the road. That's right. Join me and the crew. Clay Newcomb, Cal, Yanni, Spencer's going to be there. Phil the engineer's going to be there. Meat Eater Live headed back out. Now, when you get every ticket, okay? Every ticket you buy, you get a signed copy of our new Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook. This tour is celebrating the release of the book. Buy a ticket, get a signed copy, Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, camp stove, and campfire, which I'll point out is a $38 value. Here's where we're going to go. April 23rd, the Mesa Arts Center in Mesa, Arizona. April 24, the Balboa Theater in San Diego. April 25, the Grove in Anaheim, California. April 27, the Crest Theater in Sacramento. April 29, the Union in Salt Lake City. April 30, the Egyptian in Boise. May 1, the Wilma Theater in Missoula. May 2, the Bing Crosby Theater in Spokane, Washington. May 4, Revolution Hall in Portland, Oregon. And May 5, the last day of the tour, Pantages Theater in Tacoma, Washington. For tickets and more information, visit the events page at themeateater.com. Hope to see you at the show.